He's running around often with a top off or a vest on. The sunburn and the heat stroke that he would get from that would kill him. Gareth Timmins here. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando that spent time in Afghanistan, Egypt, Somalia and just various places around the Middle East. And my book, Becoming the 0.1%, 34 Lessons from the Diary of a Royal Marines Commando Recruit, charts my journey and earning the Royal Marines Commando coveted Green Beret. Today we're going to be looking at desert warfare scenes and judging how real they are. It's CS gas, which has been widely used in the Middle East, especially around the Arab Spring. Whether you would fire it out mortars is another thing. Firing the CS gas and having it airburst like that would just be like chucking a little cap of bleach into the sea in terms of its effectiveness on trying to poison swimmers. I mean, if you were breaking contact like that, you would absolutely I would have thought, just drove in a straight line as fast as possible to get out there. But they seem to veer into it just I think for the purposes of the film and for the viewers really. The fact that they're perfectly placed on the top is quite comical really. A minefield would normally be set out in a certain way to either restrict movement or to channel the enemy into a particular point. In terms of the spacing and the mixture of mines, it's just been placed there just for the vehicle just to hit it. The anti-personnel mines are actually now banned by the Geneva Convention. What used to happen with those was you'd trigger one of the pines and they'd come out the ground at about waist level and they'd detonate. But yeah, you wouldn't normally see them on top like that unless there'd been a sandstorm, but even still, they look brand new. If you were breaking contact or trying to get away from the enemy in an open desert like that with no kind of life support, you've got no urban environment, no buildings, you would absolutely want to stay in that truck unless it was completely disabled, and at that point you had no other option but to leave it because it was acting as a magnet for the enemy. But you certainly wouldn't bail from it if it were moving. Improvised explosive devices that are used in like Iraq and Afghanistan do flip vehicles, but whether a mine would be able to flip it to that extent is debatable. But certainly the people that were inside it would be severely injured if not killed. I'd give it a 3. Yeah, they're in the desert, they're in military vehicles, there's military kit getting used, but apart from that, it's very loosely based on reality.
I have 7 Mexican police vehicles located at the border checkpoint waiting. They're moving and forming up in your configuration.
They're really closed up now. Before they got to the border, when they were driving in urban areas or built up areas, that kind of convoy posture would have been perfect. You want to maintain the posture and the security and not have vehicles come in. But as soon as they've kind of left that and they're going now into the open desert and open ground, they would want to really extend the spacing. The Humvee it's an awful vehicle. It's not comfortable. During this now, you would close up because you've got limited visibility. It's exaggerated there really. Yeah, it is a thing. It would restrict your view absolutely.
No vehicle, no movement. Oscar 1, incoming on your right. There, I see nothing. Contact right.
I think it's realistic. You would have put out contact right, which is what they do. Again, it's good. There's like natural generalised chat in there about the weather and whatnot that would happen in real life. There'd be some jokes, there'd be some banter, but you would be very much focused on the job at hand. So the communication there in terms of communicating to the whole group is good. It could be a bit better, but it's good.
I don't see anything. Oh, down.
You would absolutely at all costs want to drive through that. We call it driving through it. They call it the killing zone. To stop in that or be disabled in that would be like your worst nightmare. The sound and the impact that round would make on the windscreen, I think would naturally, despite your training, just make you do that. I think once a few rounds had hit and it had massaged your anxiety of nothing's going to come through, you would like to think that you'd be able to get back on track and push through that. It's chaos. It's what's called a complex attack. The first guy's got out to the left, which is what you would do on a contact right. You would get out on the left-hand side of the vehicle and use it as cover then to try and get some rounds off if you had to. You're always told and trained to get out of the side naturally that's not taking a fire, so you'd get out to cover, and you can see how they're kind of getting the weapons into the shoulder And now they're manipulating the doors and then you pushing the door and coming back onto the stock of the weapon and stuff. It's really like high level stuff, and weapon manipulation and use of cover. It's absolutely superb. I wouldn't want to be under there as a soldier, because you'd have no view whatsoever of anything that's going off, and it would be claustrophobic. I can see why she's done it, unmilitary trained, but it's not where I'd want to be. You've got to try and get away from that killing zone somehow, as soon as possible. I'd give it 9. The only kind of thing that lets it down really is the spacing when they're going to open ground in terms of the vehicles, but apart from that, how they react, the weapon manipulation, the communications is really good. He's running around often with a top off or a vest on. The sunburn and the heat stroke that he would get from that would kill him. You'd have like some kind of camouflage shirt on, or like a tactical jacket, like a thin jacket, and you'd almost certainly have body armour on. Dependent on the sand, sometimes it's soft, and it would be incredibly difficult to move. I mean, granted, he's got no kit on, no body armour, but it would be incredibly difficult. You're running from side to side to evade possible enemy fire, especially if that's coming from behind you. You'd be running to positions of cover rather than in a straight line. It's there to look like a hind. It's actually the Pumas that have been modified. They've been mocked up to look like real Soviet gunships, yeah. They were introduced, I think, by the Russians in 1972, so they definitely would have been in the actual Afghan and Russian war in 79 to 89. The biggest myth really is, I think, about desert warfare films is, I think, the hero journey that one takes. So it's, if you look at, say, like Rambo or anything like that, it's kind of a one-man band, one person getting injected into a theatre, into a war zone, and in reality, it's wholly not possible. That weapon system, 50 cal Dushka, it would take it down. It absolutely would, and I'm just slightly unconvinced that there would be enough rounds for it. For that amount of time. Sometimes you can get 1 or 2 rounds off, then you have to start doing your stoppage drills. One person could operate that, yeah. Would be better with 2, but one person could. It's a difficult one because everything that happens is in the realms of possibility. It really is. I would probably give it a 5. I think the percentage of success that it would get from doing what it does would be very, very small.
Call it in, see if they're friendlies in the area.
Lima 2 Charlie. Lima 2 Charlie.
The radio operator has tried to establish comms via the sat phone. It's not been successful, but he's not give the responder opportunity to respond. We've used them before in Somalia and other places. It's just a case of sometimes moving to an elevated position or a different location to establish communication. They are unreliable.
Who are they, man? I don't know.
You would have automatically hit the floor and gone to ground, and you would have started observing from what we call your belt buckle, from a prone position. The mirage effect, obviously it's a thing, it's there, but it wouldn't distort the images like that, and you'd still be able to make people out. And the movement towards you, it's very relaxed. They're not running, they're not shouting. You'd be looking for weapons or weapon systems as they start to get closer.
Form a line!
They do get into extended line, which is good tactically for this scenario, but the posture that they get into, the hostile posture, getting weapons and getting them ready to go into the shoulder, is an escalation that you would want to try and avoid. See, they're all M16, some of them have got underslung grenade launcher attachments. It's an old American issued weapon. There'll be real weapons with probably just magazines in with no ammunition.
What are you doing? Swap! Guys, cover him!
Weapon should have been down for sure. They should have had, like, one of them just put his hand up, but just posing a more peaceful kind of approach. Maybe saying like the local language in terms of a welcome would have been the right course of action to take. He walked straight into the arc, the line of fire of all the lads. He would never do that. He would have almost certainly been killed in that if it would have gone ugly. Realism, I'd probably give it about a 5 or a 6. It's not uncommon for people to walk into your arc of fire or your line of fire and just be unaware of it. In this instance, you would try and scarper away to cover in a low profile. Going to ground in straight away is good drills. Try and lower your profile, but trying to get into some form of cover would be ideal. I know it's difficult in this scene. It's very open and there's no built-up areas or anything like that. Your tactics in this would be to, if you have to engage, but then try and peel away. Yeah, it'd be a worst-case scenario. It's a mini-me that the guy's got here, which is like a key tactical team weapon. Belt-fed 5.56 ammunition. But just how he's holding it, it's up and then he holds the back stock. He's definitely been taught that. The drills in this as well, we call it the rate of fire. The people with the rifles, the M16s, are like firing single shot, which for accuracy is great. A massive thing in Hollywood is all weapons are always on automatic, fully automatic, and it's not really correct. Although the drills are good and slick, in this you can't get away from the fact that it looks like actors holding weapons. Probably give it a 4. I think the SAS in reality would have done things differently, a lot differently. I don't think you would have engaged in preemptive strike like that unless they were literally coming towards you and upon you. The dog is clearly sniffing for explosives, IEDs, put in the ground just to identify areas to avoid. But they might also be put in the ground just to show the Allied forces where they can move. But they would sit down, yeah, when they've come across something that they're not quite happy with. They're expecting a treat, what it's kind of all about for them, it's just a game. In terms of disorientation, like the ringing noise, alluding to like how your ears would be, absolutely. Yeah, you might not hear anything for minutes. Might bust your eardrums. I mean, it is realistic, but they just seem to recover too quickly from it. Could be an old shell, an old war shell that they've used, pointing really towards a vehicle, like a vehicle IED that they've kind of detonated there. The fact that it's actually on what looks to be like a common trail for vehicles and stuff kind of points to the fact that it would have been that. I think it probably might have been a greater explosion, a bigger explosion, but it would blow them back like that, if not worse. Canine error would be a factor that you would factor into it, especially if you've not kind of run the dog over that area as well.
Hey! How did you dog miss that? You could have gotten us all killed. They must have triggered the bomb from those houses.
It's all really good until after the explosion. There's no way that you would be kind of up on your feet and calling somebody out for what they have or haven't missed. You'd be glued to the floor. You'd be shocked. You'd be disorientated, and you'd just be scared to death. There's no way that you would kind of respond in that kind of manner. And another thing that you've got to worry about is that might just be the first detonation. There might be a secondary explosion, and I think if somebody has detonated that with a command wire, which is what's happened, you would absolutely be expecting an ambush off the back of that because you've actually got people watching. I think it's really realistic up until what happens after the explosion, and for that I'd probably give it a 7. So the red smoke is to indicate the LZ, the landing zone, where you're going to extract somebody from. It's slightly strange in this clip because it's almost self-explanatory given that you've got helicopters just above it. So it's kind of just thrown out there, probably visually just for the viewers of this film. It would have been an incredibly aggressive kind of posture now from the rescuing forces. They wouldn't waste any time trying to decipher whether you've got weapons or whether you're a friendly. There's just no time for it. It's just quickly in and out. So everybody in between them and extracting the US personnel would have, it wouldn't have been a great experience for them whatsoever.
Go! Push your hands!
The Americans or anybody will always go back for one of their own. You would have had guys on the ground for weeks, days before, providing CTRs, close target recce's of this, and establishing patterns of life, what kind of weapons they've got, what time they go to bed, where they're keeping the hostage and if they keep moving him. And that would have been getting fed back in order to create this this rescue attempt. So the first phase of it probably would have been the Spectre gunships that you see and the Apaches coming in, followed by the ground forces following up behind.
Are you Marcus Control? You're safe, Marcus. You're going home.
What they could do is probably ask him his service number. Like, what's your service number, what's your name, what's your rank, and stuff like that, which would quickly identify him. So it's true to life, right? It actually happened, so I've got to give it a 9 or a 10.
Got movement, 12 o'clock, about 300 meters, 2 guys on the roof. Are they armed? I don't know.
So these are US Marines. There's kind of 2 sides to the communication at the initial start where they're saying, have they got weapons, have they got weapons? It's to identify them as potential enemy targets, but also it gives them, in a sense, a free pass to engage if they have to. Looking for weapons is the combat indicator.
Simple question, Trade. You see a weapon?
Negative. That's not the question you asked. You asked if they were armed. The answer to that one is I don't
This
know.
ain't fucking armed, Ortega. Why else would they be running around up there?
I don't know, do I? I don't understand these people.
I think the chatter is Hollywood, it's unrealistic. In real life, it'd be very minimal, and especially the swearing as well. I think this is probably a bit tame in terms of what it would be like real life. Certainly the immature nature of it is definitely inaccurate.
All I know is we need to see weapons.
They're not really using cover well, and yeah, they don't really move position in between firing, or once they take that first shot, they should have moved position, and especially if it's a sniper as well, because they'll just be looking for you just to pop back up in the same position, and they'll be on target. Kevlar helmet, they are effective in protecting your head. It all just depends on the calibre of bullet that the helmet's hit with, the angle, and also how close it is from leaving the barrel to hitting your helmet. If it's a sniper, which you could argue it is from that range and picking shots off like that, they would have kind of a long calibre bullet, like a 7.62 long, firing out of a bolt action rifle. It might protect them based on angle, but if it is a sniper from that distance as well, they would probably be getting like hits towards the centre of mass or on the face, but it would protect them. What the viewers need to appreciate is that it would be incredibly uncomfortable to have your head above that, knowing that somebody's firing, because all you can really think about is that in not even a second you could be hit in the face, and that might be you just completely turned off. So you are uncomfortably aware of that. So yeah, I think you would be a lot further down.
Where are you hit? On the eyes.
I mean, he might have had sand kick up from the round that he wants to just get out. It's probably the right course of action in that instance. He might have had a bit of material from his helmet if he's been shot in the helmet and stuff, so yeah. I'd give it a 5, just because I think the chatter's kind of unrealistic. It's very immature. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, then please click on the one above.